Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to communicate from a Raspberry Pi to an Arduino using the I2C method. So let's go. This is also going to be one method of how we're going to transmit information from the Raspberry Pi to the Arduino. So if you want to see other videos on other methods of communication between these two units, make sure you're subscribed because I'll do some more videos in the future on things like that. But first, what I'm going to go through is the wiring diagram. So from the Raspberry Pi, we have the 3 wires that are going to go across to the Arduino. Now, on the Arduino, it does show that the ground's going across to the other side of the board. It can go to where the other 2 wires are connected. There is a ground pin over there, so you can just connect it up there, as I have done in my setup that you see here. Now, those 3 wires are the SDA, SCL, and the ground pin. So you can see that this is how it's laid out on the Pinout diagram on the Raspberry Pi. Now that's also GPIO2 and GPIO3. Now if we come across to the Arduino Mega, you can see on one side of the board we have the SCL, or the serial clock, SDA, which is the serial data, and then if we go down 2 pins, we then have a ground. So you can use those 3 pins to connect up to the Raspberry Pi. Now, there are also the digital pins down below on the board, which is pin 20 and 21. That's also the SDA and SCL. So if your Arduino Mega doesn't have those pins up the top, because some of them don't, you can use the pins down below. They're just connected as well the same way. If you're using an Arduino Uno or something similar, there will also be those same pins. You just need to get the pinout diagram for each of those Arduinos and find the appropriate spot. As for the code, what we're going to do is code the Arduino first. Basically, it's the receiver. It's receiving the information from the Raspberry Pi. So what we have here is the code set up basically to receive a signal, and then if it receives a signal, it's going to turn on its onboard LED. Now, as you experiment and you are able to learn more about the functions, what you can do is set up the signal that's come across to do other things, like maybe move a servo motor or turn on LEDs or relays, whatever you want. So basically how it's set up is we have in the void set up the address that we're going to set. Now address is important because your Raspberry Pi is sending it to this Arduino. You can have multiple Arduinos set up, and if it's looking for the wrong address, it's not going to see the information sent from the Raspberry Pi. So making sure you have the correct address set on both units is important. Other than that, basically we have down the bottom where the conditions are set that if it does receive information, all it's doing is setting the LED pin to a 1, which is basically telling it to turn on. So if we come across to the Raspberry Pi on Thorny, which is a code editing software on the Raspberry Pi, which comes default, but if you want to know more about that or want me to do more videos on maybe how to do some stuff in that software, let me know. But what we have is the code, which basically in the 3rd line there, you can see it is looking for that address number 8, which is the same. So with that address set, it is going to be sending a signal to say 1, which will in turn turn the LED on. Now, what it's then waiting for is an input from the user on the Raspberry Pi that when you press the return or enter button, it then writes to that same address a 0, which basically says to turn the LED off. Very basic setup to turn the LED on and off. So then what happens is if we come across to the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi, you can see that the LED is off. When I start the software, the internal or onboard LED will light up, as you can see now. And then after a few seconds, I hit the enter button and then the light turns off, which is completing the code. So that's about it for this tutorial. If you liked it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more projects like this. Let me know if you want to see some other videos as well. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.